there's a little bit of a delay.
All right. So we should be live.
Yay!
Hopefully. And I like how I'm supposed to have the chat screen on here, but I do not. So.
Yeah, I have no idea how this program works.
It doesn't look like anyone here is here yet. My headphones always delay the sound and it throws me off.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're late, I'll give it a few minutes for people to show up.
Yep. I like how you can't see out my window, but like if you could, it would just be snow anyway, so that looks pretty realistic. Pretty much exactly what it looks like out there.
Just white.
Yep, it's just white.
It was just overcast today. So just gloomy.
Yep. Unfortunately, we're not supposed to have sun for a few days yet, so I'm not sure when our snow is going to melt. Sad.
Yeah. It's always the hard part is it snowed and then it's like, okay, it's going to be like 3 or 4 days before the temperature gets warm enough to actually start melting it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So hello to anyone who is joining us. Looks like we might have somebody here, so.
That's good. Have you had this book for a while?
Mm-mm.
Or you just...
It was just one I came across, and then I think it was in like your December book call or something, and I'm like, well, I was thinking about asking you to do the book club with me, and I was thinking you might do the book jumper after reading the Forgotten Book. Then you had that one, and I'm like, well, maybe not.
Yes, when you asked, I was like, oh no, I want to do both, but I have the copy of the one, so.
Yeah, the book jumper, I think, is the only one that I owned of the ones I've done so far.
Okay.
So.
And you read that before, right? Or not?
The book jumper, no, just the Forgotten Book.
Okay. Which was so good, by the way.
I know, I'm hoping the book jumper is too.
I remember you talking about the Forgotten Book, getting it from the library.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
On my TBR for a long time and just never picked it up and finally went, fine, I need to read it.
It was so good. Yeah. When I picked it up, I was like, oh, I should have listened to Charlene earlier.
It was one of those, it was like, I hope I didn't hype it up too much.
No, I didn't. Well, the thing is, too, people tell me about books, and I'm like, that sounds really good. I'll request it from the library. And then it comes in, and I'm like, I forget generally who even told me about it, what it's about. And so I just go in not knowing anything, which usually works out pretty well.
Yep. All right, so for whoever is here, we are here to talk about Magnify by Stefanie Lozinski, which is the first book in the Storm and Spire series. At least all the books are fairly short. It's a little bit longer series.
Are they the same length-ish?
Yeah, I think this one was less than 300 pages, so I think the other books are all over 300, but they're less than 400, so
nice.
They're still not long books.
Mm-hmm.
So, should have clicked that in the other order. So I have my co-host with me today for this month. It is Chantel from Chantel Reads All Day. So if you want to introduce yourself and tell people who you are, where they can find you.
Yeah, my name is Chantel, and you can find me in the very, very snowy landscape here. My channel is Chantel Reads All Day, and I like all sorts of books. Fantasy, classics are generally where I'm at these days, but I dabble in a lot of things, and I'm excited to be here and talk about this book I've had on my TBR forever.
I will say I didn't realize it was a self-published book until I went to talk about it in my March TBR.
Yeah,
For some reason, I thought it was an Enclave book. I don't know why.
I don't even know where I originally came across it. I feel like I've heard about it forever, but yeah. My physical copy doesn't have the about the author or the foreword. I don't know if the ebook did because I read the first bit physically and then I read the ebook. I meant to go back and check, but
Yeah. Nope,
does yours
that
have?
doesn't have the forward either.
Yeah.
I think the about the author is at the end. I think that's like the
Oh, that's on the
last
table of
page of the
contents.
table of contents.
Oh, I see it. I see it. Okay, it's just because it was on the last page. That's
Yeah.
why. Yeah. Okay.
But I figured it out from the very back of the book because it says Ingram Content, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Ingram Spark, which is a self-publishing platform.
Yeah. Yeah, mine doesn't say that on the back. It just says where it was printed,
Mm.
manufactured by Amazon, and where it was printed here. So
Yeah. So before we start talking about the book itself, our thoughts on it anyway, I figure we can start with a summary of the book, kind of what it's about. Do you want to explain that, or would you like me to?
you go ahead. I feel like
Okay.
because you read it like we were both reading it during the page count reading challenge, right?
Right.
I think I finished it at the beginning, you finished at the end, so you have it more fresh.
Oh yeah, 5 days makes such a difference.
It does. It's like 5 books.
Right. Especially as many as you read. Um, okay. So this book is a high Christian fantasy, and I'm pretty sure it's actually YA. When I originally picked it, I thought it was adult,
Yeah,
but
could be.
I think it's actually listed as YA.
Oh yeah, it says it actually on the back.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. For some reason, I read it wrong when I picked it out. But in this book, we are following a boy named Wes, who is an envoy, and his job is to take offerings to the Dragodai, who are the gods in his world, every 4 months or 4 times a year, so every season. And he gets approached by a dragon whose name is not easy to say it. I think it's like Celisyria or something.
Hmm.
And she has done some reading. She's more of a scholar. And she approaches him saying, I've learned some things. The Dragodai are not gods. And there is a higher god, and we need to be following him. And she thinks Wes can somehow convince people to follow this higher god instead. He doesn't think he has that much power, and he's not sure that he believes her. So he has to decide what he's going to do with this information. That's probably as succinctly as I can
Yeah, that was
describe
good.
that without going into spoilers.
That was good. I was totally pronouncing the dragon's name because it's pretty much spelled like Celestria's name.
Right.
So I was like pronouncing it like that, except it doesn't have the T, it's got a Y.
Yeah.
So that's how I was thinking of it. And my book was gifted to me by Celestria too. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Right. And I looked at it and was like, oh, the end is spelled like the country Syria. So that's why I pronounce it that way.
And also English makes no sense, so it could be either way.
This is true. Right. So at this point, I will let you start if you want to share kind of your general non-spoilery thoughts on the books.
Okay. General non-spoilery thoughts. Overall, I enjoyed it. I felt like you could kind of tell that it was self-published. I have questions that were not answered, and I don't know if this is it's self-published and not all the way thought out, written out, or if there's more things that are coming in the series that I'm not supposed to know yet.
Right.
Um, but I liked the general idea of the story. I liked that the idea that these people are following this religion that they haven't questioned for years, and then someone comes with more information, and thankfully it didn't take Wes very long to like think things through. Um, yeah, and then I felt like pacing wise though, the first half took it was really slow, and then it tons of stuff happened in the second half.
Yeah.
But overall, I enjoyed the overarching story.
Mhm. Yeah. Very similar. I really enjoyed the way it was written. I thought the writing style was really good. Her descriptions and everything I thought were really well done. I like the overall plot, but I agree. I think there were some things that to me felt like they were missing or extra details that I felt like I wanted.
Yep.
So, did you have any questions that you wanted to start with before I jump into mine?
You go ahead and start, and then we'll go from there. I have a
Okay.
bunch of notes, but we'll see what you all touch on.
All right. So, to start with, I thought we'd talk about our thoughts on Wes and Celesyria as individuals. Like, what did you think about those two characters?
Well, yeah, okay. Wes, this is not his fault, but I really struggle when authors only describe the negative qualities of their characters. I felt like there was a lot of emphasis put on his physical quality, him being pudgy.
Hmm.
I think that could have been mentioned once, and we could have learned some nice things about Wes. Like, he seems like a really good guy,
Right.
but but the his physical appearance kept getting mentioned, and it kept he'd do good things, and I'd be like, "Oh, I like him," and then it just kind of always brought him down. But if I ignore the physical descriptions kind of getting in my mental space, I really liked him as a character. I appreciated how he um, was generally kind to the people that he came across, like when he found some kids and stuff like that. He seemed like a nice guy, maybe a little too trusting at times, but overall, I liked him. Um, and then you want me to go into, okay, how do you say her name again?
I
Celesyria?
say it's Celesyria. I
Okay.
have no idea how it's pronounced.
Yeah, well,
You
that's
just
what the
pronounce it your
fantasy.
way. That's fine.
Well, the dragon, um, I wish we would have had a little bit more. I feel like she was a little underdeveloped. I like a lot of what she had going on. I appreciate that we got to see kind of a little flashback of her coming across this new information. Were they on scrolls or however it was? Um, but I feel like we didn't get to know her very well, even while she was in the book a lot. So yeah, those are my like initial thoughts.
Yeah. So Wes, I would agree. I think he was a really good guy, and I wish there would have been more emphasis on the positive traits about
Mhm.
him because he did have some. Um, I think also maybe that's why his weight was discussed a lot is because he seems to just be down on himself a lot. Um, and so I wish we could have had him see some of his positive traits so we didn't focus on the negative all the time. Uh, Celesyria, I do wish we would have gotten more information on her, especially prior to meeting Wes,
Yeah,
because she talks about being a scholar. She talks about how she's the odd one out. She's not like the other dragons. She's always been the outcast. But we only hear her talk about it. We never see her with the other dragons and see how they treat her, see how they're different from her. I think really her parents are about the only ones that we see her with. Um, so I would have liked to see more interactions with other dragons to see how is she different from them? How do they actually treat her? Or is this just her perception of how they're treating her?
right. Hmm.
So,
Yeah, we didn't really see any other dragons at all. Like, yeah, very true.
And I like dragons. I would have liked more dragons in the book.
Yeah, I got really excited when, well, Ashley actually told me that, like, chapter 2, there's a dragon, and so then I was like,
Mhm.
"Score," but
Right.
sometimes I think the way she was written too, I forgot she was a dragon.
Yeah.
Like, she seemed very human
Mhm.
in many ways.
I also sometimes had to remind myself of how big she's supposed to be because I kept picturing her like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon
Well, yeah, when, like, because she's reading these scrolls and stuff, so, like,
in a dwarf library.
yeah, so,
Because yeah, he made the comment. He's like, "How did you fit in there?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? How did she fit in there?" And I'm like, "Oh wait, she's supposed to be like 5 times their size."
yeah, yeah. Maybe they have a very big library, dwarf library.
Yeah. So, and I forgot to say, but at this point in time, we will potentially be delving into spoilers. So if you've read the book or don't care about spoilers, feel free to stick around. If you don't want to be spoiled, thank you for being here, but I don't want to spoil you. Uh, some of the other things I thought was interesting in the book that we could potentially talk about is what are your thoughts on the Christian elements in the book?
Yeah, so, well, so Stefanie Lozinski is Catholic, I believe.
Okay. Oh, wait, I think I did know that.
I don't remember. Oh, I think it was maybe in her bio. I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah,
like,
because this says one of the things you'll find her doing is praying a rosary.
yeah. So I kind of like had that at the back of my mind while I was reading it, but I like how realistic it is. Like, all these people, they have this false religion that they're following, and no one's questioning it. Um, and that just feels like that is what we as humans naturally do, like create some kind of religion. And how I appreciate how Celestria, as I will say, comes in with the truth. And I actually appreciate that Wes doesn't believe her right away, because you don't want someone that's just like, oh, okay, I'll just like hop over to this side or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I liked the symbolism of what was it, like the high one? Like
Hmm.
it was obviously a distinct person or like higher power
Hmm.
instead of this group like the religion that they were following.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
And I gather that it's probably not just necessarily a man made religion, so to speak. Uh, it almost seems like, because I believe the Dracodai are supposed to be dragons. And so it seems like they somehow took power and somehow put themselves in this place, eventually convinced people that they were gods, and the people followed them.
And this is one of the questions I have is like, I feel like their religion isn't explained very well. Like I get the whole
Hmm.
that he has to bring the sacrifice 4 times a year, but like what do they actually believe? Like who? Yeah, because there's the Dracodai. Who are they? I mean, it doesn't sound like anyone knows
Yeah.
because Celestria said no one has seen them,
Hmm.
right?
Because they're up at the top of the spire, and they just send the female dwarves down as their messengers, so nobody actually sees them.
So I have
But
like
that's about all
some
we know.
what?
But that's about all we know.
Yeah, and I have some like conspiracy theories here for this religion that they've got going on.
Yeah.
Definitely seems there's something sketchy happening there.
Yeah. That was actually one of the things because I showed you that I have a whole bunch
Yes.
of tabs in my book. Unfortunately, they were not all positive tabs because it was like there were just a lot of things that I felt like were kind of missing. And the religion was one of them because when he hears about the high one from Celesteria, whatever her name is,
Well,
um,
this whole name.
um, he talks about like I can't even think about believing that because that's blasphemy. But other than him taking the offering, we really don't know anything about the religion,
Yeah.
you know, because this just seems like an exchange of services. He sends them offerings on behalf of his people, and in return, they're supposed to offer protection. Like, this is a business exchange, is all
Yeah.
this is.
Yeah.
And so, how it's viewed as a religion is really not explained. And so, I'm like, I have a hard time feeling the conflict that he feels when I don't even know how devout he really was, why he believed what he believed prior to finding out about the High One.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, yeah. Other than if you grow up being taught something, depending on your personality, a lot of people don't question it,
Yeah,
right? Like, and because he has this role to be the envoy, it would look really bad if he had questions, which obviously it does later on in the book.
right.
But yeah, I have some big questions about their religion, or like I said, conspiracy theories,
Mhm.
that I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, if there's more information in later books, I would be excited to read it.
Yeah,
It's always the hard part from one book. You don't know for sure what you're going to get in later
yeah.
books.
Can I say one of my theories?
Go for it. It's not spoilery because we
Yeah,
haven't
because
read the other books.
okay, so we've got this group of guys. I don't remember what they were called. I'm trying to look for their name. Like the group
The
of,
September.
yes, them.
I just remember because it sounds like September.
Yes, the September guys. Um, they are so against Wes coming in with this information about the High One. And then there's the whole thing with the claim, which is, I think, like a token
Mhm.
that he gets when he goes and brings the sacrifice, right? And then somehow it ends up back there every 3 months. I feel like these guys are in on it. It feels like some kind of hoax to me.
Yeah. And I find it
I
really
don't know.
hard to believe that these 7 guys who seem so bent on, like, because especially the one, he treats Wes terribly. And it's like, we're in the position of power. You don't get to question us. But then they immediately step aside for King Ursa
Mhm.
when he wants to be steward. And I'm like, he really didn't have a chance to talk to them because they were in that meeting room. They decide Wes is wrong. He probably needs to be charged. But then we have this engagement. So they bring him out. And then Ursa goes off to talk to Kasara and then comes back and it's like, I'm going to be your steward. Like, you didn't even talk to the Septemvirate. So what is going on?
Yeah. Something super fishy.
Yeah.
Oh, like, and that's one of the things too, where it's like, was this poorly written? Should this have been written out? Or will this come up later?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard. It can be hard when you're one book in. I think there's 5 books in the series.
I think so.
Yeah. Did you
Although,
have
speaking of Christian elements and getting to the latter part of the book with Ursa taking over, I did find it interesting when Wes is taken through the street and he's like, is no one going to stop this? Like, his friends don't even want to look at him, nothing. And I'm like, I really feel like this is how Jesus felt after he was arrested
Mm-hmm.
in the garden. So I
Yeah.
kind of appreciated that part being there too.
Yeah. That's really good. And then afterwards, I was like, can we even trust those friends that
Hmm.
didn't stand up for him and then came back and said they were on his side? I don't know who to believe.
Right. And I feel like we see so little of most of the other characters. Like, he talks about Morn being um, a friend of his brother's and then supposedly a friend of his, but it's like until he's arrested, we see him like once or twice.
Yeah.
So it's like, I appreciate that you feel like your friends have turned on you, but they don't even feel like friends.
Yeah.
I'm shaking my camera, cat.
Cats need attention too.
Yep. He's getting very vocal about it.
Yeah, well, got things to say.
Yep.
Did you have like an maybe this I don't if I'm jumping questions,
Oh,
stop
that's
me.
fine.
But did you have an idea of how the claim ends up back in the mountain?
My guess was that whenever he takes the next offering, like I think this time was he taking the winter offering? I don't
I don't know.
remember.
Could be.
We'll just say if it's the winter offering, that he takes the winter claim back and gives it back to them. And then if they accept the spring offering, he gets the spring claim. Like that was my guess.
Hmm.
I don't know for sure if they actually said or not, though, now that you bring it up.
Well, I thought it was kind of mentioned just that like it ends up back in the mountain and he didn't know how or something. I don't know.
That could be. I know there's a lot of things that he doesn't know with the offering. Like even Celisyria questions, what do they do with the offering?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
offerings all like gold and jewels and stuff. It's like, are they actually making use out of this? Or are they just making people poor for really no reason?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got questions about that for sure.
Mm. Right. So then to jump to a different person, what are your thoughts on Kasara?
I'm glad you brought her up because I don't know. Do I trust her? Do I not? I'm so confused by her.
Yeah.
Especially the ending. I don't know whose side she's on.
Yeah.
Like, she seemed nice, but then she too quickly was like on Wes's side and then too quickly went over and then
Yeah.
the whole helping him get out of prison bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sounded maybe like she was just trying to help him get caught again. I was so confused as to like what she was doing.
Yeah. I want to know what her and King Ursa's conversation was. So I feel like if we knew that, it would probably clear up a lot of other things. Because I'm like, did he threaten her? Or was there something else in that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of political things going on in this book.
Yeah, for sure.
I also find it interesting, just looking at West, the fact that he's part of the royal family, but because he's the envoy, he basically has no power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how that works, but
And then if he had gotten married, his wife would have power. She could rule, I think, right? That was
yeah,
the idea.
yeah, that was kind of the idea that he could marry Kasara.
Mm-hmm.
She would be queen,
Yeah.
and any of their children would be heirs, but he couldn't rule.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so he's kind of like he's there to keep up the royal line, but he was also kind of just chopped liver. His opinion didn't matter. Like he couldn't do anything.
Yeah, you're here to do a job, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kasara was definitely an interesting character, and I kind of wish we would have gotten more of her.
Yeah.
But she shows up very late in the story, so.
Mm-hmm. And she apparently loved Wes's brother,
At
is
least
what.
that's what Wes says.
Yes, I was gonna say that's what he says. So, but she was really quick to like want to marry him.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think it was love. I
Yeah.
think he was.
But I think she was saying her parents wanted them to get married.
Yeah, I think it was to help her people or something like that.
Yeah.
But
So it may have been like the first time I was going to marry for duty and for love. This time it's just for duty. Or maybe she likes Wes more than he realizes.
maybe.
So I feel like I need to read book 2 just to find out.
I know. Well, except that maybe you have to read 2, 3, 4, 5.
Potentially, yeah.
And then that's a big commitment.
Yeah. Okay. We kind of talked about this, but just in case there were any that we didn't touch on, were there any other parts that didn't make sense to you or that you wish had been expanded on? Because I know we kind of talked about the religion, but
Hmm. Um, okay, so Wes came across these kids early on in the book and helped them out and stuff. And then just like sends them back to where they were kidnapped. And he doesn't even go. Celestria goes and says that they're safe. I just feel like after he went through all that work, I would have been like, I'm coming with, making sure we've got a plan so this isn't going to happen again, or get some details on these other kids that have been captured, or
yeah.
what's going on.
Like
Sometimes I
you're
feel like,
friends with a dragon, you could fly back on her to make up for lost time.
yeah, I feel he didn't ask enough questions. I would have asked some more questions to figure out what's going on. That, yeah, so that felt, even though they're apparently home and safe or somewhere and safe, that felt very unresolved to me. Like, I don't trust that they're safe.
Yeah.
And then I've got, yeah, like questions about the elders and that whole bit, which I feel like probably would come up in a upcoming, like one of the other books, but
Yeah. And I was struggling to figure out how they worked initially because when Wes called the meeting with them, I was kind of viewing them more as like royal advisors, except obviously there's no king or queen, but he's the closest that they have. And so he was more calling them for advice, not I'm meeting with the leaders of my kingdom to try to change their minds about something. So the meeting kind of caught me off guard at first because I didn't realize the direction it was going until after it got started.
yeah, and like Wes just very blindly trusts them when obviously they've, I don't know if like the whole King Ursa stuff, did they know he was coming? Was this planned? Like,
Yeah.
how much was in the works behind Wes's back?
I mean, Wes kind of knew because he met with some of the people from King Ursa's kingdom when he was on his way back home, and they basically said King Ursa was going to be coming. But
Yeah,
did the rest of them know about it?
yeah.
I guess is the question.
Because
And
they,
there's only one September that seemed to be on Wes's side. And even in the end, we kind of realized he's not really on Wes's side. It was just as long as I can take care of you and still get my way,
yeah,
is almost what it feels like.
yeah. And well, we were told that because King Ursa's father died, and he was like an okay guy, but King Ursa, not so much.
They've
And
been questioning if he killed his own father.
yeah, so why is everyone so like, yeah, let's let him lead our kingdom for now? Like,
Right.
maybe not.
Maybe not.
Just saying, like, it's interesting that no one, I mean, when Wes was taken away, there was a bit of a fight for a little bit, but like prior to that, no one stood up and was like, yeah, I'm not cool with this guy taking over. Like,
Yeah. And it's like you went 5 years without any kind of steward. Like,
mhm.
why do you all of a sudden think you need one? And if you
Yeah.
did, why
And then
couldn't you make Hasara the steward?
well, and they have a history with Wes. Like, obviously, I assume he's got some good standing other than the fact that he's been eating too much and people are hungry. But like, I feel like he's still a better choice than King Ursa. Like, at
Yeah.
least Wes didn't kill his family.
Yeah, but Wes isn't allowed to take power because he's the envoy. That's what
Yeah,
caused the downfall of that one other kingdom.
but
Not the whatever.
they could have. trusted what he was trying to tell them,
Yeah.
or even like when his engagement was announced. Like, why were people so upset? Like, it's just there's some things I didn't understand, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if they thought he was taking power from them by making this decision himself or what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, they seem to have a better relation with Gale Harbor, where Kasara's from, than where King Ursa's from.
Yeah.
So it's like, why couldn't they be? Either they be the stewards or send Kasara to be the steward in their place so they can rule their own kingdom. I think that might have made more sense, especially
Mm-hmm.
with her being betrothed to Wes's brother. That might have made more sense than King Ursa coming in and being steward.
Mm-hmm.
There's something fishy going on this September.
Yeah. For sure.
Did you have any other questions written down before I kind of get into some of the final things?
What's with the cover?
I do remember you mentioning that.
We the ocean is mentioned like one time because the dwarves are kind of going somewhere, but like for the most part, it takes place in a desert.
Yeah. And his kingdom is on the coast, but I don't think the castle is.
And like, yeah, they don't really mention water. There's a dragon, I get that part,
Right?
but the water, I'm confused.
Yeah. It looks cool,
It does, it
but
does.
no, it doesn't fit with the story at all.
That's a question I have.
Okay. So at this point in time, do you plan to continue the series?
I want to know what happens, but I'm not sure I'm willing to read through 5 books to get there.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm on the fence.
You
Part
could
of
read
me
it, and you could
almost
tell me
wants to
what
read at
happens.
least the second book and just see, do we get any more answers, or are there still just enough empty gaps like in this book that it feels like we may not get all these answers? It might just be the way she wrote the story.
Mhm.
Or do we actually start getting some answers? And if we start getting some answers, then I might continue. But I'm even on the fence about the second book because I'm just afraid it's going to turn out to be essentially bad writing
Mm.
or lack of description in the writing. So I don't know if I want to read another book or not, but
Have you looked to see what the other ones are rated?
I have not.
Me neither. I was just curious. Because normally, if you're going to continue a series, you'll generally, the people that continue it will give it higher marks. Like often it kind of goes up a little bit.
Yeah,
Maybe.
because the only people who continue the series are generally ones who at least mostly liked the first book.
Yeah. And I feel very on the fence on how I feel about the book. I liked parts of it. I think I like where she's going, if she's going where I think she's going, but I have so many questions, and if they don't get answered, then it's like, well, then I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Well, I just looked it up. So the first book has a 4.16 rating, but
oh,
then book 2 is a 4.5. Books 3 and 4 are 4.6 and I think 4.61, and book 5 I think is 4.62.
oh wow, okay.
So they do at least get better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's higher than I would have guessed. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you continue it, then you can tell me if it's worth it.
That's the hard part, is the fact that because it's indie published, I either have to get on Kindle Unlimited or I have to purchase it. My library's
Yeah.
not going to carry it.
I know.
And that's always the hard part when you're iffy, is it's like, do I really want to put out the money for another book?
Totally.
But
I know I have Kindle Unlimited right now, but I have some books that I really want to read. So I'm like, do I want to spend my time reading a book that I'm not sure?
yeah.
I don't know. Are the covers different on the other ones?
No.
It's the same cover. So
Well, it's the same shape.
is it
It's just a different picture inside the shield every time.
okay? It's a very pretty cover.
Mhm.
I do wish that the series title was smaller than the book title.
Yeah. I have another series like that on my shelves. Unfortunately, it's buried behind the couch. But it's the same thing where in big letters across the top it says Raven versus Crow, and then at the bottom in smaller font it says, book 1 or book 2 in the title, and I'm like, that's really confusing.
Well, and like this one was Magnify. I know book two is Majesty. Because it's so small, they look like they're the same word if you just
Mhm.
like quickly glance at
And
it.
all of them start with an M.
Do they?
Yeah, because Majesty, Maelstrom, Maker, and Manifest.
Hmm. Yeah,
Thank you, Goodreads.
but it's pretty.
Mhm. All right. Do you have any additional comments, anything we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about before we go into final thoughts?
Well, let me just see what I had here. I think I think that covered most of it. Yeah. Oh, one other thing. We don't really know much about the Guardians. So there's supposed to be these dragons.
Mm, yeah,
What are they guarding? Are
yeah.
they Celestria is supposed to be one of them for some reason. Why? Like I have a lot of questions in regards to that. I feel like that wasn't fleshed out.
Yeah. The only thing I could gather about the Guardians, because they talked about when I think it's Noctura, the kingdom that fell, um, that towards the end, when they were falling to the elves, that the dragons came in to basically try to save them from the elves. I gathered that those are the Guardians, that they're
Okay.
basically sent in by the Dracodai to offer that protection that the Dracodai offer in exchange for their offering. If they do any more than that, I have no idea. But
Okay.
that's the only
Yeah.
thing that I could think of that we hear about the dragons doing that made any sense.
Yeah. I would have liked a little bit more information on that.
Yeah. Like I said, in general, I just wanted more dragons to see
Yeah.
more
Well,
stuff.
they're dying, so you're gonna have less dragons.
Right. We need to fix that. And I want to know more about these prophecies. That would probably be the biggest reason I would continue the series. So I want to know more about these prophecies.
Right.
All right. So then if you want to talk any final thoughts and give your star rating. So anything that like you weren't able to cover in general thoughts or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like I'm invested enough in the story that I really want to know how it plays out. I'm just not sure for me if that means maybe I find a summary online. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm that invested.
Yeah. Part of me wishes it was a little bit more popular series to where I could hear somebody else's review
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
other books and at least get an idea of if questions are answered or if it gets better or whatever.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay, so you want to start reading? I don't remember. Like, it's so funny because I read a book right after reading it, and then a little bit later, it's like, oh, I don't know if I agree with that. And this year, I'm rating on Goodreads and Storygraph. So Goodreads only has individual stars, where Storygraph has 0.25, 0.5, 0.75.
Yeah, Fable does too.
Yes, and I've been doing Fable. Like
Yeah.
I've been doing all three. I think I'm done with Fable now because three is a little bit too many for me. But
Yeah.
I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because I almost always round up. And I think I probably gave it 4.5 on Storygraph. But now talking it through, it's like I have more questions than like solid information. So I feel like it's more maybe like a 3.25. But that could change depending what happens in the series.
Yeah. And I haven't rated the book online yet because I was still debating. So I think I'm probably going to end up landing around a 3.5. I was kind of debating between 3 and 3.5 because it's like there were things I liked about the story. Like I said, I like the writing. I do like some things about the characters and the plot, but then I feel like there's just holes
Yeah.
where we just needed more information, and that part dropped it down.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing I'm going to go with a 3.5, but I've been waffling back and forth for a while.
Well, and even like my theory is, if those questions, those holes are filled throughout the series, then it'll be better.
Mhm.
But at the same time, that still doesn't help this book, right?
Yeah.
Like you still have those holes right from the beginning. So, yeah.
And the biggest hole that unfortunately I don't think you can really fill for me is that I wanted more information on their views on their religion prior to Celesyria giving him
Yeah.
information on the High One.
Too, because like he's going in for this sacrifice and instantly they're ambushed.
Mhm.
So we don't have a whole lot of time to like understand what's going on before we're like just
Yeah.
thrown into the wolves kind of thing.
Yeah. Like the Deer Master goes with him, makes the comment when he starts telling stories that the Dracodai are their gods. But that's the only mention of that prior to Celesyria showing up. And so it's like, I, I kind of wish the first part of the story would have started a bit earlier
Mhm.
to give us more information on their religion and on how Wes felt about it, what he
Yeah.
believed, and all that prior to Celesyria showing up.
Yeah, it should have started like a few days before, like while they're on their journey would have been a good time for him to process thoughts and stuff
Yeah.
and for us to get to know these people before they're dead.
Yeah.
Like, mhm,
I think that was the hardest part is it was hard to get attached to some of the characters who did die because
mhm,
you just don't know them or you don't know much about them.
yeah,
We know about his family and that they died, but we don't get a whole lot of information about them before finding out that that's what happened to them.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true.
anything else
I don't
before I
think
wrap it
so.
up?
I'm kind of glad that we kind of landed in the same place. At the same time, it would have been really fun if we had like very different thoughts because that
Yeah,
could be fun. But it always makes me feel like, okay, I was reading the book correctly when someone else is
yeah.
on the same wavelength.
It's always hard when it's like you rated it 5 stars and somebody else rated it 2 stars, and then you're like, did I miss something?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So next month's book is The Book Jumper by Mekto Glezer, which is always fun to try to say.
Yeah, good job.
And this is a book originally written in German. As far as I'm aware, it's the only other book she's written that's been translated into English. And if I enjoy that one, I hope more of her books get translated into English
Yeah,
because I think she has at least 5 or 6 books published. So
she.
it'd be nice if more of them were in English.
That reminds me, I was going to see if my library has it because the Forgotten Book was so good.
Mhm. And this one's jumping into books. So
Yeah, that's fun. Who is your co-host?
Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia,
Nice.
my co-host next month. It's actually entertaining because I don't think she's read the Forgotten Book, so this will be her first book by her. So it'll be interesting to see what she sees versus me comparing it to her other book potentially.
Do you know which one was written first?
The Book Jumper, I believe, was first.
Okay. My library actually has it. This
Oh,
library does not have very many books, so that's awesome.
yeah. I don't even know where I found mine because I don't think I bought it online.
Wow.
I'm not sure. Or if I did, it was from like Book Outlet or something.
Hmm.
I don't remember now. It's been too long. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Chantel, for being here and reading this book with me.
Thank you. It was fun.
It was. So, if nothing else, this book club is getting me reading some different books.
Yeah.
So,
That's always good to have that pressure.
yeah. So, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you later.